Many Hollywood blockbusters that gross hundreds of millions of dollars at the box office do so quite predictably. This is especially true for sequels, prequels, remakes, and other similar projects that are popular these days. From time to time, strange films come out, like the third G.I. Joe movie, which everyone predicted would flop even before it went into production. But those are exceptions. Expensive original films are a different story. Their success is harder to predict. Because of this, some films are considered dark horses or guaranteed flops right up until their theatrical release. At best, people change their opinions after seeing the first trailers. But sometimes it's the other way around. Everyone expects a movie, such as the new King Kong, to be a hit, but in the end it falls short of expectations. Today, let's talk about several projects that, before hitting theaters, were considered dark horses at best. These were films that even the studios behind them often lost faith in, yet they still became major box office hits after their release. Nowadays, only the most out-of-touch people on the planet haven't heard about the success of Titanic, but back in 1997, when it first hit theaters, the film grossed less than Scream 2, which had premiered a week earlier. But things quickly turned around. In the early stages of development, even 20th Century Fox didn't believe in the film. Its original budget was half of what it eventually became. To secure funding, James Cameron intentionally kept the cost estimates low. When the shoot was already in full swing, he had to give up his $10 million fee. But even that wasn't enough, and a panicked Fox struck a deal with another Hollywood studio, Paramount, to co-finance the project. Paramount invested $60 million into Titanic and received the US distribution rights, which ultimately earned them $600 million. James Cameron said that before the premiere, he kept a sharp razor nearby, ready to end it all if the film failed. Luckily, he never had to use it. Titanic grossed $1.8 billion worldwide, making it the highest-grossing film in history at the time. With the re-releases included, its final total reached $2.2 billion. What's funny is that a similar story happened with the director's next film, Avatar. This time, Fox fully financed the movie. After Avatar broke all of Titanic's records, studio executives admitted they didn't believe in the film and thought that right after the premiere, they'd be out on the street along with James Cameron. But remembering how Paramount received a $600 million gift, they were willing to give Cameron $500 million, even though this time everyone was preparing for the worst. Unlike Titanic, Avatar faced far fewer predictions of failure. People just didn't expect it could gross almost $3 billion at the box office. No one mentioned numbers that high, and most expected the final gross to be between $800 million and $1 billion. In 1990, there was a movie that nobody believed in. The director of Ghost, Jerry Zucker, known for his work on Airplane, spent several months running around Hollywood trying to convince people to star in his film. His main targets were Mel Gibson and Bruce Willis. However, after reading the script, both started avoiding the director like the plague. As a result, neither the director nor the producer wanted to see any of the actors who eventually got the roles in the film. Demi Moore was initially cast only because she could cry on command. The director refused Patrick Swayze for several months until the film's screenwriter intervened. Tired of constant refusals from Hollywood actors, he asked the director to reconsider Swayze and watch an interview where Patrick suddenly burst into tears. After watching the interview, the director gave in. Still, it's fair to say that the film might have turned out very differently if someone like Bruce Willis had been involved. Whoopi Goldberg joined Ghost at the last minute, largely thanks to Patrick Swayze, who spent a long time convincing the producers to give her a chance. Initially, her character was supposed to be a real medium, but after filming began, the director decided it would be funnier if she was a fraud who unexpectedly started hearing Patrick Swayze's character. All these casting problems and other difficulties forced the filmmakers to significantly cut the budget and remove several expensive scenes from the movie. The studio, not expecting much from the film, released Ghost on just 1,000 screens, while Die Hard 2, released at the same time, was playing on 2,500 screens. This was mostly because at the same time as Ghost, the studio released two other films they believed were guaranteed hits, Another 48 Hours and Days of Thunder, which together had nearly 5,000 screens. Ghost simply didn't get enough screens. However, a week later, when Ghost knocked Die Hard off the top spot, the studio started taking screens away from their guaranteed hits to add them to this little-known movie, which ended up becoming the highest-grossing film of 1990, earning $505 million on a $22 million budget, beating Dances with Wolves, Pretty Woman, and Home Alone. In the mid-90s, when Carolco Pictures was working on X-Men, director James Cameron showed great interest in the project. However, the film didn't go into production, so Cameron switched to Spider-Man, and Fox acquired the rights to X-Men, which nobody wanted. The rights to Spider-Man were just as unwanted, but Fox refused to pay a whole $1 million to buy them, even though Cameron tried hard to convince them. In the late 1990s, when the studio finally put the film's script into production, they gave it a minimal budget, just enough to get the movie made. Several screenwriters brought in to polish the script worked on reducing the number of action scenes. All Hollywood stars refused to appear in the film. According to rumors, the only one who didn't refuse was Mel Gibson, but he asked for $30 million and the studio immediately backed out. The success of X-Men was relatively modest. With a $75 million budget, the film grossed $296 million. Still, it became a hit and did very well on video. As a result, the studio began working on a sequel. It's believed that it was X-Men that launched the comic book craze in Hollywood. Thanks to the success of Bryan Singer's film, Sony gave the green light to produce Spider-Man, which went on to dominate both the American and global box offices. Director Peter Jackson pitched his idea for The Lord of the Rings to all the major Hollywood studios, but he was rejected everywhere. No one saw any box office potential in the project. The only studio that agreed to finance it was the small New Line Cinema, which allocated $90 million for each film in the planned trilogy. This was the minimum amount Peter Jackson had mentioned. That, however, was only part of the problem. Almost all well-known actors declined the offers to appear in the film. Daniel Day-Lewis, Russell Crowe, and Sean Connery all told Jackson to get lost, each in their own way. The case with Connery is especially amusing because he was offered 15% of the box office earnings from the future trilogy. This means he could have made nearly $300 to $400 million. According to Jackson, he did this to increase the trilogy's budget because having a superstar on board would allow him to negotiate additional funding from the studio. In the end, the lead roles went to relatively unknown actors, some of whom ended up in the film by chance after others dropped out for various reasons. Universal Pictures was probably the most upset, as they hesitated the longest over Jackson's offer. Moreover, they were willing to allocate more money than New Line Cinema, but only for one film. The other two would have remained in question until the first film premiered. No one believed The Lord of the Rings would be a success, and many predicted it would flop until the first trailer came out. Yet the trilogy grossed nearly $3 billion worldwide, despite having a combined budget under $300 million. Iron Man was Marvel Studios' first fully self-produced movie. In Hollywood, many thought the studio wouldn't last long and would soon meet its end. The talk and noise about the film's inevitable failure were so loud that Tom Cruise, who had been considering the role of Tony Stark, left the project. That only strengthened the belief that the film was doomed, so no one else wanted to get near it. Among all the actors considered to replace Cruise, only Robert Downey Jr., who was barely in demand at the time and had just overcome drug addiction, accepted the part. He was paid only $500,000 for the role, less than anyone else in the main cast. Since Marvel didn't expect the movie to be such a hit, they didn't sign Robert to a multi-film contract. As a result, his fee for the second movie rose to $10 million. In The Avengers, he asked for $40 million and eventually demanded $50 million. The situation was similar to that of The Lord of the Rings and The Matrix. Before the trailer came out, everyone thought that Iron Man would be a complete failure. No one believed people would go to theaters to see a relatively unknown superhero. They put more hope in The Incredible Hulk, which was being filmed at the same time. But once the first trailer came out, everything changed. With a budget of $140 million, the film grossed nearly $600 million. Iron Man was also a huge hit on home video, earning its creators $170 million from the US market alone. What happened to Marvel Studios after that is well known. The Matrix is another cult film that dozens of actors turned down roles for. During a studio-organized bidding process among sunglasses manufacturers, giants like Ray-Ban refused to offer any substantial support, while Nokia only offered a discontinued phone model for the shoot. nobody wanted to associate with a low-tier project. It's actually hard to blame them. Back then, visual effects were just starting to take over blockbusters, and hardly anyone could imagine what The Matrix would look like on screen. Without the groundbreaking technology it had back then, the movie might have turned out completely different and failed to draw an audience. Moreover, not long before, Keanu had already flopped with a similar film, Johnny Mnemonic. The directors, meanwhile, only had a script for a failed Stallone action movie and a small film called Bound that didn't find success at the box office. That's why Warner Brothers removed everything they could from the script. They reduced the budget so much that the filmmakers couldn't shoot the movie in the US, but everything changed once the film hit theaters. With a budget of $63 million, The Matrix grossed $464 million and quickly became a cult classic. After that, Warner Brothers didn't hesitate to invest $300 million in the 2 sequels. As a bonus, let's talk about another film that was prematurely written off by its studio. It doesn't really fit here because of its relatively modest box office performance compared to other films in this selection, but the list wouldn't feel complete without truly great talent. Out for Justice was Steven Seagal's 4th movie. The actor's previous 3 films steadily saw growth in budget and box office returns. Warner Brothers expected something similar from this film as well, however, it encountered several problems. Having become a star, Steven started to cause trouble on set, making actors and the director follow his orders. Since the team often had to film what Steven wanted, they fell behind schedule and exceeded the budget, some of which was spent on a new trailer for Steven. In his previous trailer, the lights would randomly go out, which drove Steven crazy. As a result, he even tried to fire one of the crew members who had been assigned as the lighting chief for his trailer because the person wasn't doing the job properly. Because of the actor's aggressive behavior, he was even denied purchasing the dog that appeared in the film. Then came the test screenings, which revealed several more issues. First, no one liked the movie. Second, William Forsythe's character overshadowed Steven Seagal. Initially, Steven took over the editing and reduced William's presence in the film to the bare minimum. But that didn't help the movie much, and the studio concluded that Out for Justice still wasn't working. So they removed Steven from the editing room and brought in Michael Elliott, who had just finished fixing Warner's Showdown in Little Tokyo. Elliott removed 40 minutes from the film and completely re-edited it. This version didn't satisfy anyone either, and on top of that, the film now had plot holes. With no time left, the studio released the unfinished film without any marketing support. Critics immediately slammed it and anticipated it would mark Seagal's first failure. But Out for Justice debuted at number 1 at the box office and stayed there for 2 weeks. With a budget of $14 million, the film grossed over $60 million worldwide. Following this success, Warner Brothers gave an impressive $35 million budget to Under Siege, which later became the highest-grossing film in Steven Seagal's career. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned!